As the federal courts have said, we need to bring Mr. Abrego Garcia home to protect his constitutional rights to due process. And it's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States. If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America.
Yes.
The Fourth Circuit put it very clearly in its strong opinion yesterday, and I quote, "It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter, but in this case, it is not hard at all. The government, in this case the Trump administration, is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order. Further, it claims, in essence, that because it has rid itself of custody, that there is nothing that can be done. This should be shocking not only to judges, but to the intuitive sense.
Yeah, I will talk about the liberals going crazy too.
Far removed from the courthouses still hold dear."
No, Kilmar is not back on U.S. soil, but Senator Chris Van Hollen's efforts, at the very least, move the needle in the direction of inevitably bringing him back to U.S. soil, to his family, to his friends, to his coworkers, to his brothers in the union. He has MS-13 knuckle tattoo. I know. Every knucklehead on the planet is coming in and going, he has an MS-13 knuckle tattoo. What the f- are you talking about? He's outside CCOT now. He's in another prison that's less insane. You want to know something that is hilarious about the knuckle tattoo situation? If he truly had knuckle tattoos initially that suggested MS-13 gang affiliation, would have put that in the report. Defenders of this deportation regime wouldn't have been running around being like, well, he's wearing a Chicago Bulls hat, even though he lived in Maryland. Clearly, he's MS-13. They would have started off with that, don't you think? It was never even presented as evidence. MS-13 is super tatted up. People don't necessarily hide that they're MS-13 affiliated. The idea that, like, the Department of Homeland Security failed the precursory analysis of his tattoos for multiple years at this point, only to recognize them after the administration openly admitted that they wrongfully deported this man to El Salvador, after a previous immigration court judge said that he specifically is not MS-13. He is under threat by MS-13. If he were to be deported to El Salvador, he would most likely get killed. All of those things happen, but magically now he has MS-13 knuckle tattoos. Ridiculous. Also, due process. This is why due process is a necessity. I know it has 300,000 likes on Twitter. It does not matter. The president can just lie about whatever the f- he wants to, and people will just eat it up.
They summed up the issue at stake perfectly. And that's why the Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia. Now, the Trump administration wants to flat out lie about what this case is about. They want to change the subject. They want to make it about something else. And they are flouting the orders from the Federal District Court, the Fourth Circuit Court, and the Supreme Court to facilitate his return. That's why I traveled to El Salvador, leaving here on Wednesday. And I want to express my gratitude to members of my family and members of my staff who agree that we all must be prepared to take risks because of the current risk to our Constitution itself. In addition to having a variety of discussions on bilateral issues between the United States and El Salvador, I had two main goals. One was to urge the government of El Salvador not to be complicit in the illegal abduction and detention of Mr.
Serious question. Since when has it been illegal to just be in a gang? That's actually a really good question. And it also shows that we have completely lost sight of how these things are supposed to be. You're not wrong. It is technically, and I know people will lose their minds when I say this, it's not illegal to be gang affiliated. Okay? It's entirely dependent on what your affiliation is. It's entirely dependent on what kind of investigation has been conducted and what kind of facilitation of gang activity that you've participated in. So yes, it is technically not even illegal to be in a gang, which is so crazy to say because like people will hear that and go, "What the f- are you talking about?" Of course it is. No, it's not. It's illegal to do a crime. It's kind of a goofy point, to be fair. It's not even a goofy point. It's actually a very serious point. And the larger consideration here is how far we've moved the needle away from what due process used to look like and what the criminal justice system used to look like. Now, this is just for the United States of America. And considering that there is now a vague terrorism designation for the MS-13 gang and Tren de Aragua, it doesn't even matter, obviously, especially because these are deportation proceedings. So there is a lower bar to clear. But the government has even lowered that bar further by claiming everyone is a terrorist without any due process whatsoever. So if initially the argument was like, well, hold up, you could just say anyone and everyone is a gang member if you think that that's appropriate for any kind of criminal proceeding, you're wrong. To the government can say whoever they want is a terrorist, and there is no investigation in that process. There's no due process whatsoever, and they can just deport you. It is insane.
Abrego Garcia, and to release him. I made that request directly to the Vice President of El Salvador. The president was out of country at the time, and I had previously reported on that conversation. My principal mission was to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife...
Yes, Hell's Angels would be a great example of this, except the Trump administration likes Hell's Angels. They consider them to be a white gang. That's why the Trump movement in general will always be like, Hell's Angels are going to go to battle. They fantasize about the Hell's Angels like protecting America, not realizing that half the Hell's Angels are also Latino, but that's besides the point. And they're not white at all. And they consider Hell's Angels to be an American gang, an honorable gang, a gang that's going to fight against Tren de Aragua. That's the fantasy, remember? When they were hallucinating about the Aurora, Colorado apartment complex situation, they were fantasizing about how Hell's Angels are moving into Aurora, Colorado to fight the Tren de Aragua gangs.
Wife Jennifer and his family, that I would do everything in my power to make that happen.
Yeah, look.
And last night,
fact check, video does not show Hell's Angels riding to Colorado in August 2024.
8:45 p.m. here on the East Coast. I called
Hell's Angels on their way to Aurora, Colorado to help clean up the apartments being invaded by illegals from Valenzuela. Raise hell, praise Dale. The difference is that they're white. No, they're not even white.
Called Jennifer to tell her that I had met with Kilmar. And I told her what he said to me, which was first and foremost that he missed her and his family. And as he said that, you could see a tear go down his...
He looks back here. She's on the other side. And the Republicans literally zoomed in on this to be like, he doesn't even know Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife. He doesn't even know what she looks like. This is all a sham. And they cut it before he actually found her in the background. Like, I saw so many clips, dude.
When I asked him what was the one thing he would ask for in addition to his freedom, he said he wanted to talk to his wife, Jennifer. I told him I would work very hard to make that happen. I told him that in addition to his family, that all of you who are here today were fighting to bring him home. I told him that his brothers and sisters in his union, the sheet metal workers union, were fighting to bring him home.
Here's an American doctor that received an email from immigration officials telling her to leave the country immediately, and she's not the only one. If you recall, a couple days ago, an immigration attorney stated on the timeline that her wife had gotten this exact notice of termination of parole on the same date, April 11th. Initially, I was like, I don't know if there is validity to this, or I don't know if what happened here, right? Because it seemed so ridiculous that the federal government would actively do an email mass blast out to random people who are American citizens on accident of a notice of termination of parole. Except that is real. That is what happened. The government is basically doing like scam phishing emails at this point.
Time for you to leave the United States. That's the first sentence Lisa Anderson saw in an email she got from the Department of Homeland Security Friday.
The language seems pretty threatening to whoever it might actually apply to.
She thought it was spam at first, but the email was very real after Anderson had it vetted. What created confusion is that Anderson, who's a physician and lives in Cromwell, was born in Pennsylvania and is a U.S. citizen.
I really have no idea how my email ended up on that list unless someone else was using that as a false email.
She now carries her passport on the advice of attorneys and is looking for representation from an actual immigration attorney worried about legal repercussions, something she never thought she would ever need.
I don't have anything to do with immigration, and I never thought that I would be in need of the services of an immigration attorney either, and that's where I find myself.
This comes just days after 2 Boston immigration attorneys got the same email
Yeah, this is what I was talking about, the Boston
from
email.
DHS, despite being U.S. citizens themselves. A senior DHS official telling our sister station, NBC Boston, that Customs and Border Protection has been sending these emails to people who do not have lawful status in the U.S., saying, quote, if a non-personal email, such as an American citizen contact, was provided by the alien, notices may have been sent to unintended recipients. CBP is monitoring communications and will address any issues on a case-by-case basis.
They're sending mass blast emails because we are run by the most incompetent charlatans of all time. They're sending mass blast emails to American citizens saying, like, you're going to get deported. They're doing the shittiest slop job of Photoshop here, which I guess you could say is simply to suggest that these tattoos are MS-13 tattoos, but it doesn't even matter because the audience is so goddamn stupid that they now believe that he has tattoos that say MS1 and 3 on his knuckles. And the initial meme, I guess, of this being MS-13 originally came from a New York Post article that basically just took a neo-Nazi statement as facts from this original photo. Yeah, look at this. Hey, Chris Van Hollen, I went ahead and changed your office plaque for you. Chris Van Hollen, senator from El Salvador. Oh my God, they're so stupid. That's the other thing. They're doing like a bunch of AI art to be like, oh, he wants to kiss and make out with the MS-13 gang member. He wants to have gay sex with the MS-13 gang member. LOL. And these are like 65-year-old, 75-year-old adults, okay? No self-respect, no decency whatsoever.